Whoops. LinkedIn says you are not approved for a link. Welcome to ADPAC Insights, where we speak with business leaders and those who are really improving the socio-economic ground for our people. Welcome to ADPAC Insights, where we speak with business leaders and those who are really improving the socio-economic ground for our people. Okay. So I want to welcome our guests, Marvin Miller and Ayisha Gardner from the We Want a Black Chambers campaign. So Marvin, introduce yourself, sir, and tell us a bit about your career background.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'll do exactly that. My name is Marvin Miller. Basically my career background has been very varied. I started out in law, crime, commercial, family law. But like many, I had a burning desire to do something else, and I went out and put my entrepreneurial skills to test and become a management consultant. Well, my main field is marketing consultancy, actually. And so I've worked with a number of businesses over the last 16 years, businesses and people, large, medium, and small businesses, on basically understanding their ideas and their vision and putting it into a reality. So that would be commercial organizations such as Danone or Sony or the London 2012 Games, leading up some of their teams there on marketing communications, through to consulting with smaller businesses over their strategic plans and helping them to put them in a position to win through key messaging and their audiences and their strategies. So that's pretty much been my background so far.
Beautiful. And Ayisha, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good afternoon. My name's Ayisha Gardner. I'm a business owner, first and foremost. I own a spa in South London. Started that about 7 years ago, basically building their business year by year, slowly but surely. I've always had an interest in community groups. So I work with a lot of community groups, and part of my business model was actually mentoring as well. I've also worked with a lot of individuals and business groups over the years, trying to kind of build engagement across the community. Now I find myself here with the We Want a Black Chamber of Commerce campaign.
Okay, fantastic. So all of these things start with a seed, an idea. What was your initial vision based on, and how did your experiences inform that? And that goes to anybody.
Well, I think for myself, it was more reactionary. The vision, I'm not one to come up with the initial ideas a lot of the time. I understand when somebody has an idea or somebody has a problem, what we can do about it, though. So I understand. I start adding flesh to the bones. And what happened is, the problems in facing the Afro-Caribbean community have been well documented, and there was a range of disparate ideas, and that's what I do as a consultant: understand how we can bring them all together and make sure that we can deliver a body of work and people and messaging in an impactful way that can help us to get to where we need to be. So my vision has basically been to have that figurehead body where our voices can be heard and we can make impactful change.
And Ayisha, same question.
For me, it started with trying to build my own network and being a business owner and trying to get as much resources around me as possible, and understanding how difficult that actually is to network and be connected and build collaboration with other businesses. I mean, I looked at gentrification and I looked at how the businesses at the high street was actually changing as well. And that's a lot of the Black businesses per se were getting pushed out. So that's where the ideas started to come, like how could we change this? How could we be more prepared for the changes in the environment? And it started to, all the puzzles started coming together when I spoke to a policy advisor and started to realize that there were a lot of associations and information and resources out there that a lot of black businesses are not privy to. And that's the information that's actually holding them back from building and developing.
Excellent. Now, you guys working with us on a regular basis understand just how many of us there are and how qualified we are. We are at the high echelons of every single industry. But there is a myth as lay people, one, that there aren't enough of us to get anything done in this country, and two, that we don't have the expertise. So I just want to read the stats from the 2011 poll on population by ethnicity. Now, remember, many of us didn't even take part in this because we just don't take part in census. I personally didn't fill out the census. I don't know about you two, show of hands. No. So we're not included on this census, and I'm sure there are a fair number of us, but irrespective, I'm going to read off the numbers. So Black Africans at 989,628, Black Caribbeans at 594,825, Black other, whatever they are, at 280,000, mixed white and Black African, 165,000, and mixed with Black Caribbean and white is 426,000 by their estimation, for a total of 2,457,559 of 79 of us at 4.5% of the population. Taking into account that a hell of a lot of us didn't fill out that census. Now, based on those numbers, we are looking at our marketplace. So when we think about initiatives like the Black Pound, that just gives you a clue as to the power of the consumer. But we aren't consuming everything we produce. And there is still a difficulty in our businesses connecting with consumers and even with each other and the vast amount of services that we provide. So that leads me into the first question, and I'll ask you first, Ayisha, just because you're sitting in your business premises now and have the experience of being on the high street and dealing with customers. So I'm sure these are many of the frustrations that you've experienced yourself. Why do we need a chamber, and what are the benefits to African Caribbean enterprise in the UK?
Okay, so the benefits of a chamber is to pool resources, information, training and development, to connect the dots. You may have somebody over here who's developing a brand or a product, and then somebody on the other side who is in infrastructure and trading industry. So if you connect the dots, what you're getting is an ability for somebody like myself to grow and have growth at such a rate because they've now connected with somebody else. If we have a chamber with many different resources under one roof, we can use all our resources together and be informed about how the policies have been running this country and how the government's running this country, and we can develop moving forward. So the Chamber of Commerce is really actually quite important because it's about representation as well, networking, resources, and information. And so we need Black businesses to be informed about what's happening in government and to be informed on a macro level. And we need Black businesses to also be informed collectively and get their information from viable sources as well.
And Marvin, same question, sir.
So, I mean, as I said before, I've heard a lot of the problems facing the Afro-Caribbean community. It's been well documented. We've all sat in conversations with our peers. We've all been in various different networking groups and talked about the problems quite heavily. But being who I am, I try to focus less on the problems. I understand the problems, but want to move into solution mode. And we talked about, when we talk about solutions, I looked at a range of companies that I worked with, understood what went well, and for all the different materials I read on a daily basis, and all the companies I break down to understand how, and also public sector bodies and other, how did they move things forward? And they developed all of these bodies where they were able to utilize, aggregate resources. So bodies like their companies or organizations, resources, bring them together, strategically plan them, and put them out in a way that deploy them in such a way that was impactful and was able to create propositions that couldn't be denied. We're at a stage now where I feel like we have been asking for permission for too long. We have been sitting back and waiting sometimes for too long. And every time there has been a promise, we have sat back and waited. And the last promise came many, many, many years ago, in the form of leaders. When I think back, I think, when was the last promise? Last major promise that rippled worldwide was the civil rights promises and the bills to come out of equality and equalities of opportunity. And since then, we pushed so hard for that, but since then we sat back and we waited and we waited.
Yeah.
The situation of the play in 2020 is we are still not there. And this is where we now need to take the ball into our hands as the Afro-Caribbean community to understand, how can we move this forward as a collective? How can we inform? How can we be informed? How can we make sure that we are developed? And ultimately that more people in the Afro-Caribbean society become successful. That's why we need chambers of commerce, because for the benefits of that, there's the basic benefits of a chamber of commerce, which is, the networking and bringing people together to collaborate and work together on open access to arenas you might not have had. There's, the business support functions through giving people access to template documents, legal helplines, tax helplines. There's, a range of those basic ones, but there is a need to go beyond with an Afro-Caribbean chamber of commerce, a Black chamber of commerce for Afro-Caribbean people. As Ayisha said, looking into a training program, a funded training program, or a subsidized training program that tackles some of the core issues that we need addressing, to work on a national and international supply chains, to make sure that we're collaborating with our international partners and finding new ones, and also ultimately chambers of commerce that exist abroad, and all have an opportunity to bring in that collective working, to research our issues and campaign about those through developing our own industry change makers who can apply pressure on certain industries to change and raise the profile of Afro-Caribbean people in those industries. And also, develop our own media channels to be able to promote our interests. And that's investment and monitoring, making sure that we're drawing in investment, directing people to investment, and making sure that from a mentoring perspective that we're able to wrap expertise around ideas that current Black business owners have, that people with a dream of getting into business have, that the young youths wanting to pursue a certain career and make it to senior management have, or to start their own businesses may have, and those communities who are really banking on the best ideas to come from areas of the community and make an impact to the economy and make an impact to people's homes, and ultimately sprinkle those community leaders down as inspiration so that the cycle continues. So that's why Black Chamber of Commerce that is serving Afro-Caribbean, the African and Caribbean community.
Interesting. That was a great insight and analysis, especially on the last big ask that a lot of people, especially in the States, they've acknowledged took away from their community. But I don't think we acknowledge it enough that the pursuit of integration with that illusion of inclusion took us away from our cultural banking, like partners, took us away from our local businesses, And the only reason we would want integration is so that we are treated more British. And we aren't treated more British. So integration actually failed because there never was a genuine will to integrate African Caribbean people and treat us as genuinely British citizens. So when you think about what Britain actually do, they think of themselves as a host nation with us as guests from the colony. And we've never stopped being treated like that. So I always talk about the exclusive benefits that African Caribbeans, just based on there is never a problem with any other community having exclusive benefits for their community until we actually articulate it. So I think it's time to draw a line in the sand before the next question and stop listening so much outside and build firm foundations for our economic reconstruction. We have a banking license application in the offering at exactly the same time that we've got you guys at the chambers. And there are a number of other initiatives where we are really establishing really strong foundations for an economic reconstruction for African Caribbean people. And there are global plugins in the African diaspora region who are our allies through the State of the African Diaspora. So we really have an opportunity to build trade. And at the same time, we have a colleague in Ghana who's establishing the Ghanaian Chambers of Commerce. And there's no import or export duty between Britain and Ghana. So we can very easily use Ghana as a manufacturing destination and export back to Britain, utilizing a macro economy with no trade import or export. So we're really at the precipice of some great things. So how have you guys gone about the process of establishing a chamber for African Caribbean entrepreneurs? And who have you been collaborating with? That goes to either of you again.
I think Ayisha will start that one off, I think.
Okay, so when it comes to the building of a chamber, there are some formal ways of going about it. We've done internal work and we've done external work. It began with building a bridge and a dialogue and having engagement with central government. We went straight to the top and spoke to the business and industry, energy, industry, strategic department.
It's a funny one. The business, industrial, business energy and industrial strategy.
Yeah, it's called BASE for short. And they basically work on developing business within the UK, and they make sure that there's policies written that can actually support business. And so we went straight to them and we started building a really good relationship with them and feeding back all the information that a lot of the Black businesses need so that they could understand that, number one, we exist. Number two, we also have needs. And if we want to build a full economy with Afro and Caribbean people actually putting a slice in the pie and also taking out a slice of the pie, they needed to know what we exist. So we started developing that relationship with them internally first, and then we started to run the campaign alongside of that externally. So the campaign would be about engaging the Black community more and allowing them to come and support the campaign. The campaign was also about engaging Black businesses, Black business owners, entrepreneurs, and actually going and saying, look, what do you need? Because our chambers is going to be about developing a sustainable infrastructure that will give the businesses, the entrepreneurs, the Black managers and leaders what they actually need. Not what we are told we need, but what we need. So we started the campaign alongside of that internal work as well, so it could run parallel with each other. So when we got to a specific point, we could actually provide evidence that this was a need from the Black community. So that's how we started. There's a lot to do. The chamber itself does have a specific structure that we have to adhere to, but essentially it's at a place where it can most definitely happen. And we just need to make sure that everybody gets behind the campaign in order to prove that not only do we exist, but that there is a demand for a Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marvin, tell us a little bit about the campaign and to continue on off the back of what Ayisha said as well.
Yeah, effectively. So we've been working from internally with the kind of partners that we want to be working with, because ultimately we feel that in order to get this done, we needed to have a government recognized voice for us to be able to influence policy, but also be able to access a range of different resources and opportunities that come with that. We've been working internally with them to the point where we were able to feed back all that information, what Ayisha was saying, and actually that information goes into documents on the we have that channel now to go from what the problems are with facing the Afro-Caribbean business owners who and put it across in a way that becomes part of reports that are considered within the team, within government. Where this is done in another way is you can work externally, you can set up the chambers and then ask everybody to come and engage. We did it this way because there's a need for us to do this differently. A number of the rules and frameworks for getting things done do not apply the way that this needs to be set up. So we started there. The campaign is now at a point where we've done a lot of the groundwork. We've passed a lot of the hurdles. What we need to do now was, and this was the very clear message, was let's clarify the need and make sure, let's see if the Afro-Caribbean community are going to support it. Bring it to us with the support of the Afro-Caribbean community, and we can make things happen. So we now, as a result of 4 weeks now, 3-4 weeks, we've created a website for people that allow people to come in and support. We've created social media platforms that allow people to come in and follow the pages, follow the content, share very easily, with the ultimate goal of people going back to the website and filling in those details. We've got partners sharing it via email, which has probably been a bigger side of this actually, all the partners sharing it via email. But all of the campaign is to say, right, we need a change to some of the existing rules and some of the existing constraints, because we need something additional to what the framework provides. The framework of the new usual chambers, come in, pay your fees, do the training and development, do the networking, we need this additional requirements we need. And so this is why the current campaign is qualifying all of those needs. And what all we're asking now is for the numbers. Everybody has always sat and said, this is the problem with our community, and this is what we need in business. This is struggling. This is the ceiling we have for me becoming a senior manager or owning my own business or even getting the job. We want you to gather around the campaign, because everything we're trying to deliver as part of the campaign, in conjunction with partners, will be to our benefit. And so let's move on to the second part of your question, Dean, which was about collaborations, right? And you mentioned about who we're collaborating. Well, we had a number of different, leading up to the last question is, a lot of people have their ideas and their ideals about what should be provided, how we should go about it, and the extent to which it should be done, right? And we're not saying to anybody there is one way of doing. What we're doing is aggregating all the great work that is out there, what ADPAC is doing, what our partners in the investment are doing, like Cornerstone or other, who are out there and they're delivering, they're putting their own community sourced money together and actually investing £1 million into black-owned businesses, or people in our skills and training development partners who already delivering training, already have great mentors on board, already have accelerator programs, and we're saying, why invent the wheel? Let's all come together, let's aggregate, let's organize, let's strategize, let's draw down all the resources that we need, and now everybody, let's enhance the delivery of everybody else's vision. Let's do it together. That's the core message of this campaign. We have an opportunity to do this the way it needs to be done.
Can I just add to what Marvin was saying? You know, we want to be seen as facilitators. So we're bridging the gap between government and Black businesses, Black leaders, and therefore, if we help to build those businesses and help them to be sustainable, strong businesses, they can put that money back into our community groups, back into our community, and we have an ecosystem of a chain of events. So it's not just about spending the Black pound, it's also making the Black pound work for us in our community and in our businesses. So for us, we just want to appeal to people and let them understand that it's all about collaboration. So we've got existing partners that are doing fantastic jobs. There's so many people who are working on platforms that are doing what the Chambers actually is about. So we want to be able to pull all of those people together, and we're appealing for more because we know that there are more out there. We know that there's so many platforms that are already doing amazing things, and we just need to get them all under one roof with one voice. So when we are faced with, as a community, with something that we don't potentially like, or we object, or it will affect our businesses directly, we can lobby government, we can have our voice heard, we can potentially get policies changed, we can potentially get policies looked at, that it could actually be a bit more viable for us, and our businesses are more prepared for what's to come.
There is. I want Dean and everybody's watching to understand there is room within the structure for this. The way that ADPAC works, you know, we will have a board committee, a board where we obviously have a range of talented minds and people in position of various different industry sectors to be able to help us with the central functions. But then there are very many different working groups and strategic partnerships that we can develop all across the country. Make sure that there is room for what everybody's delivering, that we're not taking away, we're enhancing it so that they can deliver it, and we can do it in a coordinated fashion. Some people do, you know, that want to do are very heavy in the exportation field. There's room for us in the national and international supply chain function of what we're doing to make sure that you're around like-minded people to advance that, and then bring it back to the community and say, here's some advice, some guidance, bits to make sure that some more people can come through. And we can all, you know, the opportunity is exciting. It's big. The whole point of the campaign is it's time to be heard. It's time for action. Yes. And everybody can get in on that. Everybody can get in on that. And we want it to be an inclusive.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Please, Ayisha.
We created the platform for it to be inclusive. So there's 3 different levels on the platform. Our website, if you go there directly, we have just an opt-in button, which means you can come from any background. You can be a student. You don't even necessarily have to be Afro-Caribbean. But all of those people that supported the BLL movement, who saw the injustices, we're calling upon all those people as well to opt in and show a solidarity for equality. And we've got an opt-in button so we can look at numbers of how many people would actually support this from any background, okay? So we can be seen as being so inclusive. We want to work with different groups. We've also got our survey up there, which if you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, or even an aspiring business owner, you just have an idea and you just thinking of a startup. And right now is a perfect time to do that. You know, what resources do you need? Our survey is there so you can actually fill it out and say, what do we need? What do I need to start with business? Then we also have a contact sheet there. And the contact sheet is for collaboration. So that's anybody who has a partnership or a working group or a platform or an association of many people. It doesn't have to be massive, it could be small, that potentially want to be a part of the chambers, that want to collaborate with us. So we can shortlist down and pick out what we need and how we can bring all of those people together and actually deliver what everyone needs under one umbrella. So there's 3 different ways that people can support. Side, sharing the information, going to our website, sharing the website, sharing emails. We've got so many different ways that people can jump on board. And this is now the time for us to potentially try and actually get something done that's sustainable for generations to come. Because we want the younger generation to really benefit from this. Yeah, if they've already got an established structure, right, that we've created, you know, we're doing amazing things already with little resources. Absolutely. Right? So for me, the generation that's coming up, they've got some serious mind, you know, digital mind. They've got a flood of information. There's so many young people that are entrepreneurs. Naturally, they're starting to build their own brands, their own businesses online, using technology. We want to be able to create a platform for them so they can walk into a building and they're going to get all the support they need. Graduates. So many ways that people can be supported. You know, there's so many graduates that have just graduated and they're what they did their degree in doesn't exist anymore. So what do they do? What do they do? Potentially start their own business, right?
so there's all these possibilities, and there's room, because this is, you know, you see me and Ayisha here today, but we do have declarations from people who will say, look, as soon as I'm there, I'm ready. They've give us their data, their pitch, their what they're doing, and what, you know, how it could benefit, you know, the community. And we're not the judge and jury of that. We won't be, because this is about the greater good of what's needed. So therefore, we want to be inclusive, and to the delivery partners to this date, one of the significant ones has been the government. They've actually been surprisingly very well, to the surprise of many, very, very forthcoming with this, to the point where, I mean, we've got a meeting date coming up with the business minister directly asking how can he help with this. What is needed. So please show me the outcomes of your research. Please show me what everybody says that they want. And this is why it's important for everybody to get on the platform and show their support, fill out the questionnaires, and also come forward if they want to be part of this great opportunity.
And it is a great opportunity. We underestimate. We've got a number of colleagues in the African Caribbean colleagues in the civil service, in Parley Reach, whose reach is powerful. These are very interesting times, and there are so many effective collaborators to bring it to fruition. I see us maybe as soon as 24 months having the same kind of impact for African Caribbean businesses as the CBI does generally. So when you see ministers and government having to present to the CBI, they will be in a room, a hotel, with 1,000 of us having to present to us, because we're genuine stakeholders whose economic fist makes a mighty impact in the United Kingdom and contributes to the GDP.
That's right.
So, this is the vision.
This is the vision.
This is the vision. And it's about people understanding not only what that vision is, but also that it's very possible. We're not going to the government with a begging bowl. I've heard that as a story. This is how the country works. Everybody else has this. We just don't. And that's, I think people need to really understand. It's, you know, everybody else has this. There's a structure, there's a formal structure as how the country works. And we're just not in front of the table at all. And we just need that representation, and we need to be seen, we need to be heard, and we need to realize the power in our economic power in this country, because that's really what it's about. It's about economics.
Two things. Let me just take everybody to this scenario. Two things happen, right? COVID round one. I remember lockdown happened. A lot of things were in disarray, and I remember Sky News had got on to had an interview with one of the ministers. I won't say who, if everybody knows who it was, but had an interview with one of the ministers and asked the minister, in making all of these decisions about the industries and the business, what's required and the lockdown policies, you know, were the because they address it in terms of BAME, which is another that's a whole different story. But but in terms of BAME, what kind of representation was at that table? And in the footage I recorded, I remember it will stick with me. But, the minister dodged it a few times. Said we invited a few people around, and one of the ministers, another minister, he attends cabinet every now and then. But the interviewer really put it on him. No. But when this decision was made, who in the cabinet, from the BAME community was there, and they broke down ministers that weren't Afro-Caribbean, because that's what happens on the BAME. You start giving all the stats to the other groups.
Absolutely.
right. Yeah. And then the interviewer said, "So, do you think it was acceptable to come to these conclusions without consulting the black business owners or other?" And he said what was important was that they had a diversity of thought. Immediately, it came to me was, well, you're missing the point. Where did you get this diversity of thought from? Because we wasn't at the table, and as far as how I came to be on this campaign was when the COVID stuff got into motion, we was me and Ayisha, we was contacted because we knew various different groups, and we've worked with a number of black businesses to see how we can bring together consultation or other. And the problem there was it's so difficult, so hard to reach all of our businesses to have a unified voice, that they don't have the resources or any other thing that they want to say we cannot get a collective voice at the table when needed. Now is the time to establish that collective voice, so Absolutely. That we're not just a document on the table, we're not the occasional research, we are at the table co-collaborating where all the decisions and policies are made or other. Maybe not all of them, maybe specific ones or other, but we need to make sure that insofar as practically possible, that we are consulted and have the opportunity to make sure that we put the Afro-Caribbean community in a position to succeed.
I think we are tired, and we should be, of other people making decisions for us. And I think it's about time that instead of us complaining about it, actually doing something about it. We can create something that would give us a voice. And that's just the bottom line. Other people can't make decisions about how our life has been impacted through various different changes. So whether it's COVID, whether it's us leaving the EU, whether it's racism, whether it's, young violence, gang violence, whether it's community issues, whether they can't have a voice about issues that affect us on a daily basis. And it's time that stops. They're open to listen. For the first time ever, we've got this far.
Yeah.
They're open to listen. They want us around the table. They want to hear what we have to say. They don't want to be making choices for us because they've realized that they just keep getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing. And so now is the time that we actually stand up, and, the petitions are fine, but we need an end byproduct that's sustainable. Just talking about it continually is not going to get the job done. We need to now action it. And it's so important for people to understand. And if they don't understand, we're on call. You can email us. We can explain it further. We can go into depth if you want more understanding about how important this chamber is and what impact it can make to your business or to your household. We're more than happy to explain further if you want to understand, but at the same time, we've had so many people that have already been looking at this idea or do understand the need. And it was about galvanizing everybody together and then being in the one position at the same time in order for it to happen. And I don't think we're going to get this chance again.
No. And I think one of the reasons is there's an energy factor as well. Living in a post-George Floyd world, we are very sick of being treated like second-class citizens. And there's a number of factors, Marvin, that you threw in there. I know there are particular things you guys may not want to speak on, dealing directly with the ministers. I have no problem with it. We have been a product of benign neglect. And the whole reason for BAME is that black doesn't actually mean anything. It's not a clearly identifiable group or a protected people. So that when you see the Asian ministers that were put forward and they said black, and he says, yes, we've got this minister, we've got Priti Patel, and I had to say again, no, black. Because what they do understand that a lot of us aren't aware of is that those guys can be politically black. Now, what they do is they conflate our numbers in population specifically to ignore African Caribbeans. But we're hit to the game.
Yeah.
There is a huge campaign to make the B A for African diaspora, because we're aware that we need to make our people a protected group. And you guys, and I have to clap for you now, you've been championing it economically, because what we don't have as a community is an economic base standing on strong foundations. We continually look to everybody else and are supported by everybody else when they feel like it, which is absolutely correct from their perspective. For us, it leaves us very wanting. And the reason this hasn't happened before is because you usually get individuals with ideas, and then it's very easy to pick them off as an individual. One, you're going to wear down the energy, which is why I mentioned that in the first instance. And two, you can tell them someone else is doing it. But when you come as the guys, as a cabal of very informed people, knowing how small our community is, irrespective of whether there's 2 million of us in London and 3 million in the UK, nobody can pull the wool over your eyes. You are going to collect, you're going to converse with, and even the private conversation we had, you are aware of the people in the landscape the government are talking to, irrespective of whether they've spoken to you or not. So it is a very, very, very small landscape. And I think just like the Wizard of Oz,
small but significant.
Very
small but highly significant. So when I say small, let me not conflate it with numbers. I'm talking about influential players. That space is a very small space. Now, in terms of our businesses, we can't calculate it yet, which is why we are doing our own census, which is why we are going to be collecting data and intelligence and sharing all of that, so we can create a very robust mapping exercise of what African Caribbean businesses and African Caribbean consumers are worth to the British gross domestic product. And until we can do that, they won't take us seriously because they don't have to. But then there is another sector I would like to talk towards, which is banking. Now, traditionally, why we haven't had access to the finance is because we haven't represented a strong solidarity amongst our businesses, which requires the chambers of commerce. But then we're in a position to go to the banks to start a specific African Caribbean banking sector, just like there is a specific Asian banking sector for the business banking. Now they have
you hit the nail on the head there, Dean. Sorry, you hit the nail on it, because what the power of this is going to do is going to allow us to enter in collective bargaining positions. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about it with other ethnic groups that they've got certain collective bargaining positions. We don't have them because we don't have the collective to make the bargaining happen. We don't have it from a recognized body standpoint. The minute we do that, we already change, and we talked about the supply chain, the national and international supply chain. So is the minute that we do that, we're able to compete. Okay, because we're able to compete on a better footing than we have now. Because the situation is that, as again you gave the demonstration of the Asian community, or for white businesses, or rather white-owned businesses, rather they're not white businesses, they're white-owned businesses. They've already got chambers of commerce.
That's right.
We are late to the party. Again. Okay. And what we need to do is to turn up. Better late than never. We need to turn up, and we have an opportunity now. There are some barriers, of course, but we have an opportunity to do that. And so when we do that, we can tackle the issues from way back, from production, manufacturing, right through to the to retail and the service sector. We can actually go across a range of industries, but we're able to talk with a community behind us, and that becomes currency. And also we're able to make sure that all our resources are pulled together in a way that we can all deliver what we intend to deliver. So it's very, very exciting.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I know people have the issues with BAME. It's a very, very strong contention for us as well, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
That has historically been the case, that people are able to shield the impact of real change on the B end of that BAME, okay, or the A for African diaspora or other. We need to make sure that the system that is set up is transparent. Is that it has a basis of equality and equality opportunity. It has inclusiveness, and it has the ability to have the independence to do what needs to be done over and above what needs to be done for. It's not good enough to model, well, this is what somebody else got, this is what somebody else got. They don't have the same challenges as the B on that BAME or affecting any other group. We understand as a collective what needs to be done, and we need to do that together. We need to be able to go over that.
The thing is, I've been speaking to, because I speak to businesses across the board, but I've also spoken to quite a few Asian businesses as well. And what's quite interesting is they don't want the BAME either, because it's already done what it needed to do at the time, which is because they have the Asian Chamber of Commerce already. You see, any time that BAME were affected by anything, they would get the resources. So because we didn't have any representation, we kind of fell through the cracks. And because it's already done what it needed to do in terms of build their infrastructure, they don't no longer want to be seen as that group that's a minority that's struggling. So they don't want it. So it's quite interesting that, again, this is what happens when other groups of the community are making decisions for us instead of with us. So for me, that's what needs to change.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Ayisha. The whole point of structural racism is to create an othering, and BAME is all about creating an othering, not quite normal, not quite British. So then you have white people, and then you have them, BAME. The whole point is to create an othering, because we are all competing for finite resources. Racism is all about competition, and racism is a team sport. So when we say racism is a social construct.
It's interesting what you're saying, Dean, because even white business owners that I've spoken to are surprised that we don't have a Black Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
They must be amazed.
They're like, they don't understand.
The reaction is amazement.
They're like, what? Where? Not one. What? Where? Hey. What in the whole?
But importantly, for any listener anybody who's jumped in and didn't see why it was important, is essentially every business community is operating within an environment, a business community environment. Okay. Before you decide to get in business, the dynamics of that environment are in play. Okay. And these structures, British Chamber of Commerce, Federation of Small Business, Industry of Directors, they're all strategic groups that are putting these parties in a position to potentially win before they start.
Absolutely.
We are not in a position to influence those dynamics of how those communities are set up, so that we can deal with the issue of gentrification that has been put out there, or to deal with the issue of funding that people feel that certain communities are underfunded, or deal with any of these other issues that we've heard, or most recently about banks not giving the finance to as willingly to Afro-Caribbean owned businesses. So we need to go a step back and say there's a gap here. We need to be able to fill it with an organization that's able to influence those dynamics, so that by the time you're ready to start something, by the time you're ready to you want to aspire to do something, that you're in a good position from the outset.
Absolutely. And you know, in the bigger conversation of structural racism, it's great that we're actually observing our ethnicity now, where there is no competition. Ethnicities are comparable in that we celebrate each other's differences, whereas race was created to compete, where IC1 is at the top and we are IC3. So it's very hard for us to compete with any parity. But now we're in a position where we're actually creating that parity. And it's very important that all of our viewers understand just how important it is to sign up with your details to this campaign, so that collectively we can contribute to the business case to create a chambers. And it's very interesting that you mentioned the economics, because the campaign that we want for 10,000 people's details is also for our own bank. So our brother Samuel Gann is the chairman of Platinum Peak Bank, and that is a license that we're seeing through. And this is a gentleman that previously raised 23 million as a young man to create a challenger bank. So we're not talking about novices. We are exceptional, and we're in exceptional times. And I see Marvin's got his pen like me, but we are running. And we're going to share all details. And similarly, everybody, you'll find the links to the website and also the Instagram in the article on the Black Chambers, which we'll be sharing widely. I really want to focus on what challenges and hurdles you're facing right now, and how the listeners can actually help, because it is imperative that we get over these challenges and hurdles, because those challenges and hurdles you face are what we collectively face that stand in the way of us and institutional racism. We break that by creating our own institutions that exclusively represent our interests. And although we'll have allies within, as we always will within everything we do, we must make sure that we are the central beneficiaries of the institutions that we're creating. So if you can speak a little bit towards the hurdles and who can enable you and how.
Should I answer that, Marvin?
If you go first, I'll fill the gaps.
You will. Okay, so some of the hurdles or the barriers that we have, firstly, we need the support of any other chamber that's out there to support our campaign and be willing to collaborate with us as well. Because again, it's not a competition of competing with each other. It's about collaboration and filling in gaps. We want something that's national, so not just London based, but also nationally based as well, so that Black business owners, Black entrepreneurs across the whole of the UK can also have a voice and access to all of our resources. That's one of the barriers. The other barrier is also collaboration. We've had an amazing and overwhelming amount of people who want to collaborate with us. But at the same time, we have had some barriers in terms of we're dealing with a group of people, if you like, in our community that are feeling quite disenfranchised, don't trust government, or potentially are looking at being quite protective over their brand or over their members. But we want to stress that we are not competing for your members or competing for your brand or your platforms. We're acting as a facilitator to get all of those platforms in one place so that can further collaborate with each other through business to business, or through utilizing resources and putting added training and resources in the chamber. That is a barrier because some people are quite untrusting. So we want to knock that narrative out of the park. And we don't, for me personally, in my own business, I will say my experience of people supporting my business has been second to none from the beginning. I'm going to put that narrative way out of the park. I cannot say that people have not supported my business, from the customer to the staff that I've had, to the girls that I've mentored, to my family that have supported me, to people that I've met along the way through networking events, through other established business owners that are seasoned. I've had a massive amount of support running my business. So for me, I don't believe that narrative. I believe we can and we will work together. I believe that if people will have their reservations, and that's fine, you can just send us an email and I will knock those reservations out of the park. For me, that is a barrier, but I think it's a barrier that we can overcome now more than ever. Because if we can walk the streets and protest for the BLM movement, that shows solidarity, and that shows that there are many, many thousands of us across this country that can and will believe in something and do want change. And I think we can change the narrative with just this alone. So for me, that is a barrier, but I think that is not a barrier that we can allow to exist, and that I don't believe it will exist in the next few months leading to the end of our campaign, if I'll be honest. Have I got any more barriers, Marvin?
Yeah, I think what you alluded to was the barriers in setting up a chamber. Okay, there is actually a process of setting up a chamber. One of the barriers there is around, so a chamber should serve a geographical region. The way that it is written in terms of the framework for approving the chambers is that, and again, this comes down to policies, is that it shouldn't serve a racial group or sect or other. What that is saying prima facie is that is not technically having a Black chambers or Afro-Caribbean chambers or other isn't something that would be directly approved. And this is why we need more support in order to enforce a change of the rules. This is why we're working with government or other. Enforce a change of the rules, because that's not the direct route. Now, precedent for this is that the Asian Chamber exists, the Asian Business Association exists. And so we want to make sure that Blacks or Afro-Caribbean chamber exists. And so the reason why we interchange today between the words Black and Afro-Caribbean, race and ethnicity, is because, albeit that the way that these structures are set up is for Baying and referred to Black, in what we are doing is trying to make sure that the institution is serving African Caribbeans. And so the very intentional purpose of that is to say, okay, we speak the language of the landscape to understand how it's very clear and how it fits in, but just to make sure that it benefits, it serves, because the chamber must serve its community, its members, and our members will be from Afro-Caribbean descent. But having said that, we are also making a contribution and to the wider community and the economy as a whole. And so there is every reason why someone who's not African Caribbean should support this, because of the fact it's going to be creating jobs, it's going to be bringing solutions to problems that other businesses might not have, it's contributing to a range of diversity, diverse ideas to enrich our societies, and that way it's drawing communities together. So what the challenges are from a setup point of a chamber. The other challenges is around the trust of who to trust. We've seen many different bodies come up and say, many different associations, this is one. Understand this. Where we are at as a chamber right now, as a chamber proposal, well, no, this uncharted territory. We haven't got this far before.
Mhm.
And so, because of this window, and because we are here now, that's why we now need everybody to make sure that they're looking at this with a clean slate and saying, let's see how we can all collaborate. That's the challenge, collaboration, as Ayisha alluded to, is just making sure that we have a spirit of each one teach one, each one feed one,
Absolutely.
and go together. So yeah, as long as we can get past that, it puts us as campaigners in a position to go into our meetings with the minister, go into our meetings with eventual meetings with chambers and discussions with chambers and the chambers, and understand how this fits within the existing landscape. Yes, it might be different. It needs to be different in its own right, but it will still deliver on everybody's objective.
Can I say that it's time to change generational thinking now? Like, it's really time to change generational thinking. You know, it's time that we just start thinking in the now and in the future. It doesn't mean that we're not going to discount what our ancestors have been through in order for us to get to this point, but we have to leave a legacy, you know, for the Windrush generation who came here and didn't even think about, some of which, a very small proportion, just thought about building businesses or owning their own home. So generally speaking, we are doing exceptionally well, considering we're all fragmented all over the place. Everybody's in their own lane. Everybody's building, but we're working double, if not triple harder, based on the fact that we're not using our resources and our network around us. And that's why we're having to work so hard, right? It's time for that to stop. You know, if you look around, you'll see that other parts of the community, they do work as a force. We have to change the generational thinking now, and we have an opportunity to do that.
No more delay, no more denial, no more doubt.
Excuses.
Let's get to work.
Absolutely.
And let's get to work in a strategic way. Let's mobilize, let's organize, let's strategize, let's energize.
Yes, I concur. You have colleagues that you may or may not even be aware of. And you know, on the political front, we've got two political parties now, in the Taking the Initiative Party and the We Matter Party. So I know that Charles Gordon, as an entrepreneur, and Desmond Jeddo in Birmingham will take a strong and active role in lobbying ministers, because we can also, as 3 million people, when it comes to local elections, now the national election has gone, vote elsewhere. We have options. So as we are speaking with our own councillors in their own parties, in Taking the Initiative Party and the We Matter Party, we're in a very powerful position. Leverage isn't about voting for the less of two evils. It's about voting within your interests. It's about belonging to organizations and institutions within your interests. And it's about creating an economic base that feeds your community specifically, and that all contributes to the GDP. However, we must establish our own specific economic base, and that is part of our reconstruction. So even the chambers of commerce being delivered for African Caribbeans is part of the British Empire's reparations to us. It's a very tiny fraction. It's also part of us creating our own repair within our reparations. It isn't only about the money that is delivered. Now, when we give them the easy outs, I'm sure they will bite our hands off to take advantage of these small biscuits that they can throw at us. And when we bring the leverage of our own political personnel into the table, I think they'll understand that we are very firmly for 2021 creating our own table. It isn't just in the States that you see people like Tyler Perry. There are those here who've just been crafting, toiling quietly in the dark, all the way from educational curriculums through economics. And now when you see that you can collaborate with initiatives that have been highly successful, like Black Pound Day, we are ready for a bright 2021. I personally can't.
We need to give more claps. You clapped us in earlier on. At the end of the day, I think, we don't take away from what anybody's doing. Like I said, everybody's going to come to the table on how they're doing, how they're tackling the same agenda. And we love the fact that, much passion with ADPAC and the fact that you guys have done your work and the systems you set up and all the rest of it to make sure that it's a fully rounded machine. Likewise, before we even met, we decided to embark on how we had a fully rounded machine. There's parts of this that we're going to have a direct meeting as minds on this. This part of this, and this is part of the barriers, by the way. There's parts of this you may not agree with your fellow neighbor on. Say, no, on that part, I think it needs to be done like this, to be done. But what we're saying is, we're both right. We're all right to our perspective.
Absolutely.
What's important is that we still organize. We still get behind the vehicles that are delivering.
Absolutely.
It's a hard road doing what we're doing, what you're doing. It's a hard road. It's a lonely road. Later on, people always want to jump on the train that's moving, right? But it will never leave the station until some more passengers turn up.
Absolutely.
So to head to the stations. You don't have to buy a ticket. We're not asking you for money right now. And if we was asking you for money, it would definitely not be the rate that is seen in other places. But you will also know that whatever you are investing, us ADPAC or whatever, it's going towards solving the very same well-documented challenges that has been discussed for too long.
Yeah.
Too long. And now it's time to do something about it.
Interesting. So the one thing I'll say based on this perception of competition is that Marvin and Ayisha aren't in anybody's way in terms of their interests. The ADPAC view is that we see everybody as a delivery partner, that there isn't any competition amongst African diaspora people. We merely complement each other in a slightly different way. We cover a slightly different angle. And to be fair, if we're a 3 million population, there is no individual organization that can do all of the work. So collaboration is key. Nobody is in anybody's way. Nobody is stopping anybody from accomplishing anything with their work. And it is completely complementary. We must get over that competitive mind state, which again is due to our indoctrination and thinking that there can only be one. Even in the England football team, they're beyond the one that used to be there. It's not just the Mill Heskey anymore, playing international game and being the most fouled man in the match, but we can play as a team and we must play as a Premier team. So one of the shouts that I'll make, I would love to call some of our Premier League players to come towards this team that Marvin and Ayisha have headed up and just collaborate, because there's a number of work. So I will call on the Black Solicitors Association to come and enable the program legally. I would call on Black accountants to come and enable the program, and then businesses just to consult. But everybody who has influence and sway to get this beast off the ground, because we must in 2021 have an African Caribbean Bank, African Caribbean Chambers of Commerce, our educational curriculum, and start to purchase commercial freeholds as outlets that create cohesion within our community. And when you see delivery partners as powerful as these two, do not burn bridges. Do not see them as competition. They are allies, they're ambitious. And I will say for the past 4 years, it is a very lonely journey, it's very hard wearing, and you don't get paid for the privilege until it's paid for it. So I know that Marvin and I.
By the way, we don't get paid.
They don't get paid. In fact, on you guys' behalf, they are spending their own money. I've been more given talks and spent my own money for travel. I've run all over Londinium, and I've been spending my own money. You're whining and dining people, and you're spending your own money, and you're also taking time away from your family and loved ones. So I don't want anybody to underestimate that.
The minute we finish this, I've got a team of 22 to get back to who will be relying on me for some direction. It's like that when you're doing these kind of things. You know, there is an element of sacrifice. The sacrifice isn't always easy. Is it necessary? That's a whole different question. So we are asking people at the moment to sacrifice a few minutes. If you're signing up, it's less than 2 minutes. If you're doing a survey, it's less than 8 minutes. That's what we're asking for right now. For put us in a position to get to the next level. What ADPAC will ask you for, they will ask you for. Well, eventually, I'm not going to steal his fund, but I've looked into to what you're doing, and actually, I thought, hang on a second, this needs to be more widespread. For sure, it needs to be more widespread. Because there's going to be, people who can relate to it and make sure that all views are heard and that all dreams are realized or have the chance of being realized. And so, yeah, we are here now. Let's do something with the opportunity.
Closing thoughts, Ayisha.
Win. For all the conversations I've ever had about what needs to change, about how unfair the structure is, even talks about people wanting to move out the country. 8 minutes isn't actually much of a sacrifice to try and change something that has potentially hindered us for nearly 500 years. The fallout of everything we've experienced is here and now. This is why we're struggling, whether it's mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, we're struggling because of the fallout. So for me personally, it is hard because we are running our own businesses at the same time.
Yeah.
My business hasn't even been open since months of this year. So I've got to recover those costs through COVID. I've got to still give the team morale. And yes, we do have our own individual lives but for me, it's not much of a sacrifice if it's going to change the narrative of what this country will look like for the likes of my son in the next 10 to 20 or 30 years. And it is that much of a change to have representation and to be able to create the ecosystem and the structure globally, internationally, and nationally is that much of a change. We could decide to move out of the country tomorrow, but what about the generations of young people that all they know is England?
Absolutely.
What are we leaving there? What are we leaving for them as a legacy? So, for me, I think we're the generation that's going to do this. But we also need everybody from all generations to come together and understand the need for this now. 8 minutes, that could potentially change generations. That's all we're asking for. So yes, go to our website, fill out our survey, opt in, contact us, and we will connect and let's try and make this happen.
Very powerful. I want to thank you guys. Everybody who is listening, please go to the links in the website, contact them. Businesses, fill out the survey. It's imperative and very important that you fill out the survey. This is a service that we've never had. And you know how many late nights we have by ourselves as business owners and just how few people we can turn to. We don't have the continued professional development. We don't have the access to finance. So what ADPAC is asking is for you to fill out our contact form. We want 10,000 of you so that we can take your details to government to open a chambers of commerce specifically for us. Its time is long overdue. Contact Ayisha and Marvin at wewantABlackChambersOfCommerce.org and at the We Want a Black Chamber UK on Instagram. So it's very simple. It's not a big ask, and it's a great benefit that we're going to get from this. I want to thank you for watching. Please subscribe to ADPAC Insights, donate to ADPAC, and we look forward to seeing you guys when we launch at the end of December. It's £5 monthly for individuals, £15 for organizations who will have access to our digital platform, and £35 for friends of ADPAC who are not African diasporans, but allies and organizations that we'll partner with, such as national chambers and business organizations. You can contact us at adpac.net or follow us on Instagram at ADPAC UK. Thank you. This was ADPAC Insights.